Hello and welcome to the VoiceOver booth. Basically, these things are huge, big wooden boxes, kind of soundproof, but not completely. So if you think you're going to put one of these in your garage with a big highway going next to you, well, think again. What you really pay for with these things, solid construction and also this special kind of foam that's got little mini parabolas in. So basically the sound goes in there and it sort of gets reflected back on itself. So it absorbs it. So it's a really good dead sound. Some of them have windows. I don't know why I've got a window with this, really. I don't need to see anything. It's a little bit claustrophobic in there and can get very hot. You can get fans that go on the side, but the problem is with these, you still hear the fan. So you really need to have a fan like the other side of the garage or in the next room, and that sucks it out, but you still hear something. So it's best to do them 5-10 minutes at a go. I wouldn't use one of these if you were doing an audiobook. I personally would hire a studio and hit the cost. Now today my Neumann U87 is out on hire, so I've actually got an old AKG C3000, which for a cut price microphone is still not bad. We're just doing demos in here today. The problem with the C3000 is it does pop an awful lot, especially for my voice, so that's why we have two pop filters there. It goes straight into the Tascam recorder. There is a Focusrite vocal processor there as well in case we need it. And of course we don't have paper anymore, we read off the tablet, and which is connected to the internet and also to the computer next door, out of the way. So this is an average voice booth setup, and you might like to buy one of these things. This came in a big box from America. I'm in the UK at the moment, so you just have to unpack it, put it together with two strong guys, and it is very, very heavy and very solid and very quiet in there, which is what you want. Now, it's kind of difficult to film in there for me to talk to you more, so I think we'll go 2 miles this way. Well, that's my soundproof voiceover box a couple of miles down the road. But it's rather difficult to set up a camera in there, so it's easy to set one up here at home in my office, where I used to use this as just accounts, but now I do quite a lot of voiceover work here. It used to be just the old little cheap audition and things that I didn't want to go down the road for, but I do actually record a lot here now. And if you haven't got the money or the space to have a voiceover box like the one down the road, well, maybe you want to have a setup like this. So let me show you the equipment I've got here, okay? First of all, we have a microphone. It's hidden in this thing here. Now, I mentioned before that I use this office, which has got normal plain walls. There's no acoustic soundproofing, apart from some in the loft. But yes, we've got a secondary glazed window because we have an airport down the road at Manchester in the UK. So that's very useful, particularly in the summer when the planes come over this way. But generally, there's no traffic outside. But we do have secondary glazing. But the walls are kind of loud, they're reverberating, they're flat walls. What the hell do we do? Look, we've got flat things around here. It's nasty, hard surfaces that basically do not absorb sound. This is not like a voice booth at all. So how on earth can I do a professional voiceover? Well, I use one of these. This is called an eyeball, amazing Canadian invention. Basically, the microphone's in the middle of that. There is a Neumann TLM 103 in the middle of that. Basically, it's a transformerless microphone, hence TLM. And it's the transformerless version of the famous U87 microphone. Great microphone, however, even though it's got a really good characteristics at the front, if you're in a bright situation, like in a normal room like this, in a normal house, it's not going to sound dead, it's not going to sound acoustically right. But what this bit of foam does, it's just the right kind of density for you, so that basically you're talking down the hole into the microphone. You're talking down at the microphone, so basically it only picks up from one direction, makes it much more directional. And the foam is not like any other foam. Normally a foam is a pop filter. It's acoustically transparent, but just stops the pops, slows down the explosion of your breath before it goes into the microphone. This is a special kind of foam that's not too stiff, so it's echoey, and it's not so soft, so it's acoustically transparent. It's just right, it's been tested, it's won loads of awards, it's brilliant, and it's about $200, which may sound a lot of money, but it's tax deductible, folks, in certain countries. The eyeball you can get from this website on your screen now. I don't get any commission for mentioning it, by the way, or any of the equipment I'm recommending to you at all. But you're welcome to check it out or choose your own if something else suits you. So you've got the microphone, then you've got the cable. It's very important that the XLR to XLR cable is of the highest quality and is as short as it can be, basically. The longer the cable, the more the electrons can get lost, and basically the quality of the cable is important as well. And you don't need any mains cables crossing your XLR. So you've got a 10-meter cable snaking around the room and then going into your recorder. Well, it could pick up all sorts of interference and mains hum and anything like that. If it does have to cross mains electricity, remember the 90-degree rule. In other words, the audio cable crosses the mains cable at 90 degrees. If it's going to be anywhere near parallel, it's going to pick up those nasty hums from your cables. Now you'll notice that this cable goes into a Marantz recorder. Broadcast quality Marantz digital recorder. There are plenty others around that are just as good. I happen to like Marantz. It's what the BBC use for many of their reporters as they go around. And I don't plug it into the computer. Why don't I do that? Surely the computer can record. Well, it can. But you see, the audio input of an average computer, even a high-tech one and a high-specification computer, basically the input circuits aren't very good. Why do they need to be good? Normally, you would only plug a microphone into a computer for a bit of Skyping and a bit of fun, and so generally nobody notices, the poor quality of the circuitry. Sometimes you've got excellent circuitry, but generally you haven't. So you've got that to contend with first of all. The second thing is it doesn't give you flexibility. I like to, and you'll see this when we go into the workflow, when we do a voiceover and edit it, I like to record onto my recorder, so it's at least there on a SD card in my Marantz recorder. I then plug it in through this little box here. The reason I have a little box is because I don't want to unplug, plug, unplug, plug, unplug, plug all the time into my precious $500, $600 Marantz and ruin the socket. I don't want it to get distressed. So basically what I do is to simply use this cheap box that you get from Radio Shack or something like that, Maplin's if you're in the UK, and you can wear that out and throw it away at the end of the year. And so you have two cables basically. So you can distress that. So you record on your Marantz, you plug into the little box that's halfway house, that connects to the USB of the computer, and then the computer then recognizes the file. Double click, opens in Audition, because you made it open on Audition, edit there, save it on the hard drive of the computer. You therefore got a backup copy, and it also means that if, for example, you're about to go on a train trip to London, which I do about once or twice a week sometimes, on the train journey, you can edit on your laptop. You have recorded your stuff on your little SD card. You take your SD card with you out of the recorder, put it in your top pocket, and you can edit on your laptop on the Virgin train down to London. So it makes use of those 2 hours. So that's why it's flexible. Now, I mentioned computer. Have you realized where the computer is? Can you hear it? Can you hear that fan humming away? No, you can't, because it's in the cupboard over there. I have some voiceover friends who use a laptop. Now, I can't quite understand how you use a laptop, because obviously a laptop's got a nasty fan, and it's right close to the screen that you're reading off, so you can't exactly separate it either. So, where is it? It's in the cupboard, and you'll find that USB cables don't like it over 5 meters. That is about 6-7 meters away, so I've had to use repeater USB cables. Again, Tandy, Radio Shack, Maplin's will sell these things, which are basically USB repeater cables, which are semi-active things which sort of boost the power, basically. Call me technical, it works anyway. So it's behind that cupboard, I can't hear the fans at all, and it's quite adequate in there. The next question people ask me is, Pete, where's the mixer? Why would you use a mixer? You need to minimize the circuitry between your mouth and the SD card. And I mean, minimize the distance in wire. As I say, the XLR cable between the microphone and the Marantz recorder needs to be as short as possible before it goes in there. And that has to be really high quality cable as well. And the other thing I recommend very, very much is that you do not have a mixer. Now, some people say, well, my mouth is it's a bit bassy, and, I like to add a bit of treble, so I do that on a mixer. Yeah, well, the problem is there. Some of your clients are going to be real high-end recording studios who will want your audio completely raw, completely unprocessed. And so if you're going to equalize it a little bit at your end, you're kind of coloring it, really. Let them have completely raw footage. Now, I say this, but I do colour my footage for most of my clients that aren't recording studios, but I don't use a mixer. You simply record it, muffled if you want to say that, and I must say that the eyeball, one of the characteristics is that it does sort of emphasize the bass of your voice quite a lot. So basically what you have to do is when you're in Adobe Audition, I'll show you this later on, you have to equalize it. So you do it in the software. You do not use hardware. The more hardware you've got, the more characteristics that you've got to get rid of afterwards, and it'll increase hiss, it'll increase maybe a bit of distortion as well, even if you've got a very expensive mixer. So this is a no mixer VoiceOver Studio. Okay, so what else have we got here? We've got a couple of decent quality bookshelf speakers. They're ones which are about $300-400 each, and also have a hi-fi amplifier as well. It's fine for this sort of environment. And I think how you calibrate it or know that the quality is good enough for you to monitor by is to, first of all, get a digital radio. If you've got digital radio in the country that you live in, then tune to your speech station, connect it up via the amplifier and the speakers that you propose to use for your VoiceOver Studio. Get used to what a really clean digital broadcast voice sounds like coming from those speakers. And you have to tune your ears to what that sounds like. Particularly, say if you're a woman, you listen to a woman. If you're a man of that particular type of voice, you tune yourself into a voice similar to your own on the broadcast radio. Now, they've got equipment which is probably more expensive than you may like to afford, although I'm lucky enough to have broadcast quality stuff, but I've built it up over the years. So you need to try and emulate that sound. Tune into what that sounds like without any distortion. Just listen to the harmonics, where the top end is. Do you hear any sibilance? Do you hear any bass rumble? You know, you've got to tune yourself into that so you can tell instantly on your system whether you have any distortion. Tell on your system whether you've got any sibilance, any background noise, any hiss, any imperfections that you can edit out or you can identify so you record again. So, headphones or no headphones? Well, it's up to you. When you do voiceover work, sometimes it kind of puts you off if you have headphones on and hearing your voice in your ears, although it's something you should really get used to. I worked in radio for many years, and there you had to wear headphones to hear people talking in your ear from the control room, or obviously phone calls. Sorry, I say obviously, maybe it's not obvious to you, but if the phone call came through the loudspeakers, it would kind of echo and sound nasty. So you hear their voice in your ears and it doesn't get picked up on the microphone as well. But you see, there's nothing here apart from your voice. So you could actually take them off. So as long as you're confident that you're recording on your machine, that's fine. And when we go through an actual recording in a minute, I'll show you the whole process from the beginning to the very end. Follow that through. And if you've got confidence that your machine is working, and you just simply put it on, basically, look for the levels. You've already checked your levels before. If you see it kicking, you see the numbers going up, you trust it, it's going to be fine. And this is where I do many of my recordings, particularly if it's a weird time of night. I'm with a family, watch a TV show, have a white tea. Suddenly, a job from Bodalgo comes through. Now, this is a German audition site. I'll tell you about all the audition sites later on and the places where you'll find work. And it's one of those where basically it's first come, first served normally. A client sort of says, I want a voiceover to do this particular thing. Here's a script. We want you to read this part of the script straight away. It's an audition, okay? And normally you have to race to it. Whatever you're doing, you run to your voice booth. Now, I don't want to get in my car and drive 2 miles down to my proper voice booth, so I do it here. And using this is perfectly acceptable for that kind of thing. And of course, when you do the real thing, that's when you go into a studio or in my voice booth down the road. Now, mentioning studio, do I use a studio? Yeah, obviously, when I go to London and I do network commercials, radio things, all that sort of thing, the ad agencies and whatever, they want to be physically with you. You can do things down the line. So basically, there's two types of voiceovers. There's some who aren't technical at all, who don't like the idea of having their own studio, who'd rather get a phone call from their agent maybe and say, would you mind going along to the studio next Monday, old chap, and do this? Yes, fine, I'll do that. And they trot along, and the studio hire fees have to come out of what they earn, which is a bit of a pain. They don't have the fun of editing their own thing or have the editorial or creative control over editing their voiceover afterwards, which I think is a bit of a shame. And basically it's not as fast. So I personally didn't want to be one of those types of voiceovers, and hopefully you watching this don't want to be like that either. So let's look at the advantages of being a voiceover like myself, someone who's trained himself to understand the technicalities of it. Okay, I've had like 35, 40 years in the business, so I've got all that experience behind me as well, which hopefully you'll pick up on, and I'll tell you all the details of everything I know over these recordings. But basically, I think it's very, very important to be technically adept, and I'll show you how to record, I'll show you how to edit, even down to getting rid of breaths and leaving gaps and all that kind of stuff. I show you the techniques of voicing things as well, how you can tell a type of script and how you can basically read a sentence in a way that the client wants. You know, whenever they say no announcer, you know exactly what they mean. When they say VOG or voice of God, you'll know what they mean. When they say soft and sultry and sexy, you know what they mean. And it's not kind of an obvious thing as you may realize. So stick with me and we'll go through every style as we go through the week. But I'm going to shut off for now and I'm going to turn on the computer. So I'm going to show you the software that I use here.